Greetings for the day. I welcome you all for the session based on data acquisition. So in today's session we are going to study what is signal communication, types of signal communication such as synchronous, asynchronous, series and parallel. Then some of the important steps in data acquisition, which is sampling theorem, aliasing effect, sample and hold circuit, sampling frequency and so on. Then we will learn about how to interface a sensor to data acquisition system or an actuator to data acquisition system, where sensor is considered to be input and actuator is considered to be output. Then we will study types of analog to digital converters and digital to analog converters. So there are two types we are going to study. One is 4-bit successive approximation type, which is also called as SAR, and then 4-bit R2R type digital to analog converter. And then lastly we will conclude with amplifiers which are used in data acquisition. First is current and another is voltage amplifier. So now let us begin with types of data transmissions. So now if you see example A over here, which is considered to be simplex type of data transmission. So now if you observe carefully, here there are two stations. First is considered to be terminal A and second is considered to be terminal B. So here signal from terminal A is passed to signal at terminal B. So if you observe this carefully, you will find that the transmission is happening in only one direction, which is from A to B. So that is why it is considered to be simplex type of data transmission. So its best example is considered to be signal communication between an antenna and a TV. Or if we consider example of baby monitors or wireless microphones or surveillance cameras, all these types of simplex data transmission where transmission of signal will happen only in one direction at a time, that is from A to B or B to A. Second is half duplex type of data transmission. Now if you can see here, signal it is being transferred from A to B or B to A. So transmission in either direction is possible but not simultaneously. So that means signal at a time can be passed from A to B or B to A. So its good example is walkie-talkie. If you can see here, example of walkie-talkie is given. So here sender says hello and then it will be received by this particular receiver. Secondly, this station will become a sender. It will send hello, and when it will be received by the station 2, that is receiver, it is considered to be half duplex. So that means signal can be transferred or it can be transmitted from A to B or B to A, but it is not simultaneous transmission. So that is why it is called as half duplex. Third is transmission in both directions simultaneously, that is called as full duplex. So signal from A to B and B to A can be transmitted simultaneously. So its good example is our mobile phone, where you can speak, you both can, or many of you can speak at the same time. That means signal can be transmitted from one station to another station or vice versa simultaneously. Now let us go to the next slide where serial transmission is explained. So when data is sent or received using serial data transmission, the data bits are organized in specific manner or specific order, since they can only be sent one after the another. So that means sender will send the data with some order, and then it will be received by the receiver one after the another. So that means when the sender will send 0 to receiver, when it will be received, then only this one will be transmitted. So it is viewed as reliable data transmission method because the data bit is only sent if previous data bit has already been received. So there are two types of serial transmission. One is synchronous and another one is asynchronous. Both of these transmission are based on bit synchronization. So what is bit synchronization? It is nothing but a function that requires to determine when the beginning and end of data transmission occurs. So that means bit synchronization will enable and it will give you signal whether it is the end of data transmission or it is the beginning of data transmission. So it helps the receiving computer to know when the data is being sent or when the data begins and ends during the transmission. It is very important to know the beginning and end of any kind of transmission, so that if any missing data is there, it can be retrieved or it can be acknowledged with respect to bit synchronization. So therefore it is based on a timing control with which one can monitor the data being transferred from one station to another station. So now let us try to understand asynchronous serial transmission. So it sends only one data set or byte at a time, where data set is a combination of various bits. So assume that here in asynchronous serial transmission there is one box. In that particular box the data is stored between two bits. First is considered to be start bit, which is denoted by 0, and last is considered as stop bit, which is denoted by 1. So in between start bit and stop bit, all the data will be stored. So as I already said, start bit indicates the beginning of data, and that alerts the receiver that the data is being arrived, it is being arriving. So a start bit, usually 0 is added to the beginning of each data set or data byte, whereas stop bit indicates that the end of the data, and to let receiver know that the byte is finished, one more additional bits are appended or it is added to the end of that particular byte. So this bits usually 1, they are usually 1 and are considered to be the stop bit. So when the complete serial transmission is received by the receiver, the receiving action will be considered as addition of one bit, which indicates that the transmission of that particular block has been finished. So there is idle time between transmission of different data bytes. This idle time is also known as gap or idle time. It can also be varied with respect to some of the intervals. So this mechanism is considered to be asynchronous serial transmission, because at byte level sender and receiver need not to be synchronized. So now let us try to understand the asynchronous type of transmission with respect to this particular example. So now if you can see here, these two zeros indicate that these are start bits, and now it has been highlighted by the orange color. Stop bits are indicated by letter 1 and being highlighted by pink color, and if you can see the gap between data units, it can be varied. So it depends on your requirement, and the direction of data flow is shown here. Now let us try to understand synchronous type of serial transmission. So synchronous transmission, it does not use start and stop bits. In this method, bit stream is combined into long. In this method, bit streams is combined into longer frames that may contain multiple bytes. So now if you see here, series of blocks are connected to each other without start and stop bits. So this is major difference between synchronous and asynchronous serial data transmission. So that means interval between two data sets cannot be varied here, because data sets are arranged in a series serial kind of fashion, where there is no gap between two data sets. So as I already said, there is no gap between various bytes in the data stream. That is why in absence of start and stop bits, bit synchronization is established between sender and receiver by the timing of transmission of each particular bit. So since various bytes are placed on the link without any gap, it is the responsibility of receiver to separate the bit stream into bytes so as to reconstruct the original signal in its desirable format. So as there is no gap between two bytes, it is very important that the receiver must separate the complete bit stream into their equivalent bytes which were sent from the sender, so that the signal can be reconstructed. So in order to receive the data without error, the receiver and sender operates at the same clock frequency. That means clock frequency of sender and receiver must be same, so that only we can eliminate the error between the data being sent and it is being received. So now let us see the comparison between synchronous and asynchronous. Data which is sent at a one time usually is considered to be 1 byte, and synchronous it is considered to be multiple bytes. Start and stop bit is present in the asynchronous transmission and it is not used in synchronous transmission. Gap between data units is present in asynchronous and it is not present in synchronous, and that is why separator is important and it is required in the synchronous type of transmission, where the complete stream again it will be separated into bytes when it reaches to the receiver. Then if we consider the data transmission speed, it is very slow in asynchronous, and in synchronous it is fast since there is no gap between data units, and it is important to know that the data transmission speed, since it is more in synchronous type of transmission, but it is important to know that after reaching the data set to the synchronous, for separation it may take longer time. So that is why data transmission speed is considered to be fast. However, further processing of that particular data may be slowed. It may slow down because of separation of complete stream into again equivalent bytes. If we consider cost, it is very low in asynchronous and it is high in synchronous data type transmission. So application, if we consider, the asynchronous data type transmission can be considered as emails, discussion boards and blogs, whereas synchronous data transmission considered to be video conferencing or chats or face-to-face meetings and so on. Now let us try to understand parallel and series transmission. So when data is sent using parallel data transmission, multiple data bits are transmitted over multiple channels at the same time. So this means that the data can be sent much faster over serial transmission methods. So now if you see here, we can see the sender and receiver, and in between sender and receiver we can see multiple channels which are used to transmit data from sender to receiver. So since number of channels, multiple channels are used between sender and receiver, at a time you can send multiple signals through these multiple channels. so that the data transmission rate is considered to be faster. But the major disadvantage of this particular method is considered to be that whether your data has been received correctly or not, or whether there is any error. So now if you see here, 8-bit data bus is sent from sender to receiver using 3 channels, and if you can see the sequence with which the bus has been sent from sender and it is received by receiver. So if you see the sequence, it starts from 0, 1, 1, or let us start it from 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0. And if you consider the sequence at which it is received by receiver, it is also same, which is 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0. So that means the sequence at which the sender has sent the data, with the same sequence, if it is received by receiver, then we can say data received correctly in parallel transmission. But if we consider the error between the data transmission, then the sequence at which the data has been sent may not be received by receiver. The example is given here because if you see the first digit, it is 0, and then it is 0, 1, 1. But if you see the sequence at which it is received, it is 0, 1, 0, 1, and so on. So that means this is the disadvantage of or limitation of parallel transmission, that the data may not be received correctly with the same sequence at which it is sent by the sender. Now let us go for the data acquisition system. So 3 types we have studied with the data transmission: asynchronous and synchronous data type transmission, which belongs to serial transmission because it has only single channel between the sender and receiver. So it is considered to be type of serial transmission. You can see it here. So here this is type of serial transmission. This is also type of serial transmission. Here you can see there is only one single channel present between sender and receiver. That is why it is considered to be serial transmission. And types of serial transmission we have studied: asynchronous and synchronous, which belongs to only single channel, whereas if multiple channels are present, it is considered to be parallel transmission. Now we will move on to data acquisition system. It is very important to study data acquisition system because all electronic systems, mechatronic systems, control systems, nowadays IoT, Internet of Things, automation, machine learning, data science, artificial intelligence, all these fields are based on data acquisition and data collection. So acquisition is nothing but a collection of data, and it's storage, or using that data for further processing and sending it to actuator for performing some action, or for for making some decisions or making some actions. We can the first step of this all term is considered to be collection of data or acquisition of data. So if you consider a physical system, maybe a machine tool or any mechanical system, or even weather conditions, if you consider example of any control system, or we can say even data which is which we gather for monitoring various kinds of machine and their components and so on. So it is considered to be the physical system, where various physical parameters or variables or characteristics of that particular system, such as pressure, temperature, motion, flow, vibrations, are to be collected using the sensors or transducers. So basic function of sensor is to collect or sense the physical parameter, or we can say the environmental variables, the environmental factors, and convert it into equivalent electrical signals. Then the signal conditioning will be done, which includes filtering of data, amplification of data, denoising, attenuation, analog to digital convergence, digital to analog convergence, and so on. Then the last part will be considered to be the encoding or decoding as per the requirement. So basically it starts with transducer, which is considered to be an input element, or sensor as an input element. Then the filter, analog to digital conversion, these two functions will be considered as signal conditioning. Before signal processing, the signal will be processed in a computer, then again digital to analog conversion and amplification will be done, so which is considered to be signal conditioning post processing. So these two will be considered as signal conditioning pre processing, and these two will be considered as signal processing, signal conditioning post processing, and then finally signal will be given to an actuator. So that means to make signal competent or to make signal suitable, so that it will be it should be read by computer, we need conditioning, and again after processing it by computer we need to make it suitable so that the actuator must read that signal. So that is why signal conditioning is needed before processing also and after processing also. So this is the flow of data acquisition. So if it is asked that various steps in the data acquisition system, then it can be written as sensing of signal, first step. Second step will be conditioning of signal, that includes filtering, denoising, amplification, attenuation, analog to digital conversion, digital to analog conversion, isolation, and so on. Third step will be signal processing, where the signal will be processed through various steps, which may include mathematical operations, arithmetical operations, logic operations, and so on. Then again the signal conditioning will be performed if it is required by an actuator. Then it will be sent to actuator, or it will be stored and displayed according to your requirement. So these are the steps which we can consider in the data acquisition system. So now, as I already discussed, the input transducer measures some of the property of the environment. Then the output of this transducer is conditioned, that is, it can be amplified or filtered. Then the signal conditioned along signal is digitized using analog to digital converters. Then the digital information is acquired, processed, and recorded by the computers. Then the computers may then modify the environment by outputting the control signals. The digital control signals are converted to the analog signal using digital to analog converters, and so on. And then the analog signals are again conditioned so that it should be made suitable for the output transducer or an output actuators. And then lastly the output transducer will interact with the environment. Then let us try to understand what is analog signal and digital signal. So if signal is varying continuously with respect to time, it is considered to be analog signal, and if it is not varying with respect continuously, if it shows the discrete characteristics, then it is considered to be the digital signal. So if you consider this particular example, rotation of this particular antenna is monitored by rotation of potentiometer. So as you rotate this potentiometer with theta I, that is the desirable azimuth angle input, according to rotation of this particular potentiometer, rotation of antenna will happen. So this action is considered to be the analog signal, or the analog signal is sent from potentiometer to the antenna. So according to the rotation of continuous rotation of this potentiometer shaft, the antenna will rotate. On the other hand, if you consider the example of rotation of antenna with respect to signal which is being sent from computer, obviously since it is sent by computer, it will be a binary system, so it will understand only 0 and 1. So that means according to the signal, digital signal which is sent by the computer in digital form, the angle of antenna will be decided and the rotation of the antenna will be done. Now let us begin with understanding what is sampling. So in data acquisition, after collecting the data from sensor or when the sensor detects the signal or any physical parameter, environmental parameter, it will be in the analog form, and then if you want to convert it into digital form, very first step is sampling. So in signal processing, sampling is nothing but reduction of continuous time signal into discrete signal. So in simple words, to convert continuous analog signal into discrete digital signal, it is considered as sampling. So that means you have to divide your continuous signal into discrete parts. That is why it is considered to be a sampling. So now if you consider this particular signal, if you observe this signal, the response of this particular quantity is varying with respect to time, since time is plotted on x-axis and its amplitude, the signal's amplitude is plotted on y-axis. Now what here has been done is, we have divided this signal into some parts, where dimension of each segment, or if we consider this as a time window, dimension of each time window is same. So that is why it is considered as sampling. So sampling is nothing but dividing your continuous signal into discrete parts where time window or dimension of time window of each part is same. So now if you see here, the sampling signal is considered to be a signal with discrete nature with some fixed dimension. Then this particular message is considered to be analog signal, and then it is passed through this sampling signal, and then the output which you get is sampled signal, which is nothing but the digital signal. So let us consider this example, where, as I already said, time is plotted on x-axis and xt is considered to be response of some system which is plotted on y-axis. So this particular line indicates the response of the system which is varying with respect to time. So if we divide this particular response into some parts like this, then it is considered to be the digital signal, where Ts is considered to be the time for each time window or windowing of the signal. So a sample is a value or set of values at a point in a time or with respect to space. So either signal can be considered varying with respect to time or with respect to space. A sampler is nothing but a subsystem or operation that extract samples from the continuous signal. So this particular sampling signal is considered as sampler. Okay. So sampling frequency or sampling rate, that is, which is considered or denoted by Fs, is nothing but average number of samples obtained in 1 second. That means number of samples sampled per second is considered to be sampling frequency. So that means Fs is equal to 1 upon capital T, where capital T is nothing but time period for which the number of samples are sampled. So if we want to understand sampling in depth, let us consider another example. So let us consider a sampling that matches with the incoming signal with this particular example. So this particular wave is considered to be input signal or incoming signal. Then there will be sampling pulses or sampler with which the signal will be passed through. So if incoming sine wave being sampled at 10 samples or 10 sample pulses per cycle, then the output, if we consider, it will be a well sampled signal. Why it is called as well sampled signal? Because both shape and amplitude of incoming signal are very well sampled. So that means if we want to reconstruct this analog signal into digital form as it is, we have to consider two factors. One is shape of this particular signal, and another one is amplitude. So if you consider the reconstructed signal into digital form, the shape of this particular signal is reconstructed again into the same form, and even the amplitude is also correctly reconstructed. So that means it is considered to be well sampled signal. So to get well sampled signal, very important factor is how many number of samples you are taking per cycle, or how many samples you are sampling per second. So that means its sampling frequency. Now let us consider another example where the rate of sampling is very less. So now if you consider the number of samples in the previous case and this particular case, you can see the space between two samples is more in this particular case. So that means the sampling frequency here is less. So that means if sampling frequency is less, then there will be sampling period will be more. So that means if incoming signal is passed through this particular pulses, you can see that it has been approximated to true signal with very bad manner, because neither amplitude is reconstructed at these two places nor shape. So that is why only if you consider 3 samples per cycle, for such case, that means low sampling rate, then the sine wave which has been reconstructed will be bad, or we can consider it to be wrongly reconstructed sine wave. Reason is the sampling frequency is very less. So now let us try to understand the sampling theorem, which is given by Nyquist sampling theorem, which is considered to be a Nyquist sampling theorem. So in signal processing, reconstruction usually means that the determination of an original continuous signal from the sequence of equally spaced samples, or we can consider it to be sampler. So partial answer is provided by Nyquist scientist, which provides that a sufficient condition under which the perfect reconstruction can be possible. So in the field of digital signal processing, sampling theorem is nothing but the theorem which is used to convert a continuous time signal into discrete signal with some logic. So Nyquist sampling theorem says that a continuous signal can be represented in its samples and can be recovered back or reconstructed back when sampling frequency fs is greater than or equal to twice of highest frequency component of that particular signal. So that means what we have to examine is, when we get the input signal, we have to find out its highest frequency component, and then we have to multiply it by 2 so that we can get its sampling frequency. So this means that if your input signal has natural frequency, highest frequency is equal to 4 Hertz, then its sampling frequency must be equal to twice of the highest frequency. That means 2 into 4. That means it must be at least 8 Hertz or more than that to get the input signal in the reconstructed form. And then the rate of sampling will be considered to be good. So fs, that is sampling frequency, must be greater than or equal to 2 into fm, that means highest frequency or maximum frequency of the input signal. Now let us consider what is aliasing effect. So if the signal is reconstructed from the sample, and if sampling rate should be at least twice of the highest frequency of analog signal. If it is not, then the sampling rate will be considered as less than the twice of highest frequency, and reconstruction can be some of other analog signal, and we obtain false value of that real signal, which is considered to be aliasing. So if your sampling rate is very less, or if it is wrong, then signal reconstructed will be wrong signal, and which is called as aliasing. Now we will try to understand aliasing with respect to image processing. So whenever a signal is sampled too slow, there can be a false interpretation of high frequency component as arising from lower frequency aliases. Aliases is nothing but the false indicators of original components. So high frequency noise also can be responsible to create errors in this particular process. So to minimize this particular error, both aliasing and high frequency noise or a low pass filter is used. So filter which have bandwidth so that it passes only a low frequency and not. So filter having bandwidth such that it passes only low frequency components and which will not give aliasing errors, which is considered to be low pass filters. So in case of signal processing and related disciplines, aliasing is the effect that causes different signals to become indistinguishable. That means it becomes indifferentiable with respect to its original signal. So that means it create alias of one another, or when or alias of original signal when it is sampled. Now if you consider this particular image, an aliased image of letter A in Times New Roman is considered to be this particular left image, whereas if you see why is it considered to be alias of original signal, because if you can see the stairs, this stairs indicates that it is not correctly reconstructed signal, but it is alias of original signal. So if you want to remove this aliasing effect, what we have to do is we have to make finish, or we have to finish this stairs. So what you can do is you can just rub these stairs, you can make a surface finish of all these stairs, and then you can get this particular signal. So this is considered to be anti-aliased image of aliased signal. So थोडक्यात काय करायचं, तर ह्या ज्या स्टेअर केसेस आहेत त्या फिनिश जर केल्या तुम्ही व्यवस्थित, त्याला फिनिशिंग केलं, इफ यू मेक फिनिशिंग ऑफ दी स्टेअर केसेस, it will remove the sharp corners, sharp edges, and that then we can consider this to be approximate signal as of the original signal. So to summarize, it also refers to the distortion or artifact that the result when the signal reconstructed from samples, it is way different from the original continuous signal. So aliasing is considered to be the visual stair stepping of edges that occur in an image when the resolution is very less or it is very low. So this phenomenon you can observe in a paint. What you can do is you can draw letter A in paint and then just zoom it, so that you will visualize the stair stepping of edges of that particular letter, which is nothing but the aliasing effect. So anti-aliasing is the smoothing of this jagged edges or sharp edges in the digital images by averaging the colors of the pixels at their boundary. Now let us consider another example where actual signal and the reconstructed signal is represented here. If you consider this particular signal, it is considered as time domain signal because the response of this signal is varying with respect to time. So if you see this dotted signal, which is considered to be the actual signal, and the reconstructed signal is shown by continuous line. So if you observe the shape and amplitude of the reconstructed signal, then we can say that shape of reconstructed signal is wrong, whereas amplitude at some places is correct, but not all the places. Amplitude at this particular place is different than the actual signal. If you consider amplitude at this particular step or this particular what we can say the time instant, it is different. So amplitude of reconstructed signal only matches at S1, S2, S3, S4 and S5, whereas at other places it is not matching. And if you consider the shape of reconstructed signal, it is completely different than the actual signal. So this is considered as aliasing of the signal. Now let us consider sample and hold circuit. So a sample and hold circuit is a circuit that samples a continuously varying analog signal at particular instant, and it holds or retains the value for specific period of time. That is why it is considered as sampling and then holding. So sampling is nothing but converting analog signal into digital form, and then for some particular specified time it should hold or retain its original value. So simple sample and hold circuit is nothing but it takes the screenshot of signal at particular time when we are considering its digitization. So there are typical sample and hold circuits which are used in analog and digital converters to eliminate the variations in the input signal that can be corrupt during the conversation. of conversion of analog signal into digital form. So now if you consider the sample times and sample and hold representation, you will find that at this particular time instant the amplitude of this particular signal is this much. If you consider the amplitude at this particular place, its amplitude is this much, and then respective amplitude can be seen. Now if I want to hold the amplitude of this particular signal from this time instant to this time instant, I want to use I have to use sample and hold circuit. So if you use sample and hold circuit as it is represented here, the amplitude at this place has been held for this much of time, and then the amplitude for this particular space is raised, and again this particular amplitude has been held for this particular time. So similarly, amplitude at each time instant has been held till the next time instant arises, and then this can be used for retaining that particular value. So now let us try to understand the basic components in sample and hold circuit. So when the analog switch is closed, that means when it is on this particular circuit, the voltage, input voltage will be applied through a terminal, then which will be fed to a capacitor. So you can see here that the capacitor is connected here before the operational amplifier or op-amp. So this capacitor will be used to charge to its peak value, or it is to be charged at its full what we can say, its full capacity. So when the analog switch is open, that is when it is off, then the capacitor stops charging. Now due to the high impedance operational amplifier which is connected right after the capacitor, the capacitor will experience high impedance. Due to this, it will not get discharged suddenly. So this will lead to holding of charge by the capacitor for a definite amount of time, and this will be time which is considered to be a holding time of that particular signal. So the time in which samples of input voltage is generated is considered to be the sampling period. Now let us try to understand the sample and hold circuit with respect to some waveform. So it can be observed that the waveform of sample and hold circuit, that during the on voltage, during the on operation, voltage will be generated, that means the signal will be 1, and during off operation there will not be any holding of charge capacitor voltage for definite amount of time, hence signal will be considered as 0. Now let us try to understand interfacing of sensor or actuator to a data acquisition system. Let us consider a temperature sensor thermocouple to be connected to the data acquisition system. Now let us consider the example where if you don't have data acquisition system, you can simply make use of Arduino board or Raspberry Pi, which is considered to be open source microprocessors or microcontrollers. So now if I want to interface K-type thermocouple, suppose a temperature sensor to the Arduino board, so that temperature variation of some system will be acquired, collected, and then it will be stored and displayed according to the requirement. So as we know that K-type thermocouple is a sensor, it is the analog sensor, temperature sensor, which requires conditioning, signal conditioning. As it is analog signal sensor, we have to convert analog signal into digital form, first type of conditioning. Then second is we have to make cold junction compensation. As we know that thermocouple consists of two junctions, one is cold junction and another one is hot junction. So we have to keep cold junction at 0 degrees Celsius, that means we have to make a cold junction compensation, which is second conditioning type. And third will be we have to convert digital voltage into equivalent digital value of temperature. So these three operations we have to perform. Now these three operations are considered to be signal conditioning operations, and hence which is need to be performed before sending it to Arduino board. So we have to connect thermocouple to the signal conditioning module, where these three operations will be performed, where analog signal will be converted into digital form, cold junction compensation will be done, and lastly digital voltage will be again converted into equivalent temperature value. When the digital temperature value is being converted, it is communicated to the Arduino board, where the Arduino board will process that signal according to some logic operations or arithmetic operations or any mathematical operations, and then it will be stored or it will be given to the some memory card or some data acquisition system. So this is how a sensor can be interfaced to data acquisition system, where various factors such as selection of sensor, its range, conditioning required for that particular signal, then uh, uh, pre-processing conditioning and post-processor conditioning, then the selection of microcontroller, data acquisition system. These all parameters must be considered while interfacing a sensor to the actuator. Now let us try to understand various steps in converting analog signal into digital form. So let us consider the first step, where the analog signal is considered with this waveform which is captured from sensor. So it is considered as input signal or sensor signal. Then immediate second step will be sampling, where this signal will be divided into some parts with the samples of time, where the dimension of this particular time window is same, so that the amplitude at some places will be observed or it can be read. So if you see amplitude at this particular place is 6.5, then 3.3, 2, 2.5 and so on. So since we have to convert it into digital form, so that it must be read by computer, so we need to convert this into binary number. So what we have to do is we have to convert these decimal numbers into whole numbers. So to convert decimal numbers into whole numbers, the process is called as quantization, where decimal number 6.5 is converted into whole number as 7. Now since it was 6.5, so value between 6.5 to 6.9 will be converted into 7 when we are considering it to be whole number. On the other hand, values between 3.1 to 3.39 will be considered as, or 3.49 will be considered as 3. So this 3.3 is converted into 3. 2 will be obviously 2. 2.5 is considered as 3. 4.4 is considered as 4. 5 is considered as 5. 3.7 will be considered as 4 and so on. So this process of converting fraction number or decimal numbers into whole number is considered to be quantization or quantizing. Then since we get the whole number, we can convert this whole decimal number into the digital form, that is binary number. So by using 3-bit system, we can convert it into 111, which will give the value 7. Similarly, 3 will be converted as 010. So such that quantization gives conversion of decimal number into binary number. Then the next step will be digitization, where you have to convert this binary number into digital form, so which is considered as digitization, where your signal will be again converted into digital form. And then lastly, by considering the digitization, the signal will be converted into digital form. So these are all steps which are considered in analog to digital conversion process. So if you want to convert again your digital signal into analog form, you have to repeat this, you have to go by reverse, you have to make this process reverse, so that you can get its original form as analog signal. Now as I already said, quantization theory, it is considered as conversion of decimal number into binary numbers. So this conversion basically considered with 2 steps, which changes sample analog voltage into digital form. So quantization is nothing but transformation of continuous analog input signal with set of data represented in discrete output states. So as we have already observed in the previous slide, let us consider again another signal. Now here the signal has been divided into some parts, then some scale will be applied. Now the scale is represented by this horizontal lines, and then its amplitude will be measured. Now this amplitude will be represented by this orange color dots. It is nothing but the quantization. Then the coding is considered as the assignment of digital code word or number to each output state. So it assigns the unique digital word to each sample that matches the digital word to the input signal. So coding will be considered as converting those fixed amplitudes or the amplitude which has been extracted from quantization theory into binary form is considered as the coding. Now, as I have already discussed the various steps in analog to digital converter, buffer amplifier, which is used for comparing the feedback signal and input signal, which is used in the process of converting analog signal into digital form. Then the low pass filter will be used to remove the undesirable high frequency components in the signal that may lead to aliasing effect. Then the sample and hold amplifier is used to maintain the fixed input value during the short conversion time. And lastly, there will be analog to digital converter, which is used to convert analog signal into digital form, and then it will be stored in the computer memory. Now let us try to understand the basic block diagrams or basic blocks in the analog to digital converter. So first will be analog voltage signal, then there will be sample and hold circuit, then n bit quantizer will be there where quantization will be performed, and then digital signal will be output.
Till now we studied digital to analog converter. Now we will understand the reverse of this, that is analog to digital converter. So the input will be an analog voltage and output will be a digital output. So ADC. Now there are three types. One is called as simultaneous or flash converter. Simultaneous A to D converter. The second one is counter type A to D converter. And the third type is successive approximation A to D converter. Now, in this particular session, we will try to understand counter type A to D converter, and then the subsequent will be successive approximation A to D converter. Counter type A to D converter. The circuit of counter type A to D converter is pretty simple. We have a comparator. What does a comparator do? It's an op-amp. In an open loop mode, it compares one input with the other, which is called as a reference. So let's say this is my analog input, which I need to convert into an equivalent digital state, and this is the reference voltage with which it will compare and then convert. This analog input will be plus and the reference is connected to negative. Now the output of the comparator goes to a control circuit, and this is also called as a gate and control circuit. Why gate? Because this output of this particular circuit goes to a counter. So let's say I want an n bit counter, that is 3-bit counter, 4-bit counter, depending upon how much is my maximum digital state. So in a counter, we know that the counter goes to a next state. That is, right now if the state is 0, it will go to state 1 when it receives a clock pulse. So this circuitry controls the clock pulse going to the counter. So here we have a clock signal, and this clock is controlled by the gate and the control circuit, which in turn is controlled by the output of the comparator. So we will see how it happens, but as of now understand that when the clock pulse will reach to the counter circuit, it will increment its state. That is, right now if it is 0, it will go to 1. Another clock reaches from 1, it will go to 2. Another clock pulse reaches, it will go to 2 to 3. But this clock pulse will only reach when this gate and control circuit will allow. When will this allow? That will depend upon the output of the comparator. So here I have the start. Counter output of the counter, let's say it's n-bit counter, so it will have n output lines. 3-bit counter will have 3 output line. 4-bit counter will have 4-bit output line. Level amplifiers to amplify the digital level, and then this is a digital output, and what we do is we convert this digital into analog. So there are 2 circuits. One is a binary ladder and one is that is the binary weighted resistance. So use either one. In this case I am using the binary R2R ladder. So here up till now the output is a digital. Now with this I am converting this digital to analog, and this analog serves as my reference voltage. The output of the counter is my actual digital output. To explain you, it becomes easier for me if I take an example. So let's say my analog input is 4 volt. So if this is 4 volt, this is start. So the counter is reset and the output is 0. Let's say it's a 3-bit counter. So the first state is 0, 0, 0. So this 0 will come to binary ladder. Now if digitally all the bits are 0, output will also be 0. So here I will get 0. So when it will compare, who is more? The voltage at the non-inverting, the positive terminal is more. So the output will be high. If the output is high, the gate and control circuit will be on. If this is on, this will allow the clock to reach to the counter. Once it reaches to the counter will increment, and the next stage will be, earlier it was 0, now it will be 1. So the state goes from 0, 0, 0 to 0, 0, 1. Now once it goes to 1, this will be amplified, goes to binary ladder. Binary ladder will convert this digital into analog. This analog comes as 1. So 0. Now it comes to another state called as 1. Now when 4 and 1 is compared with 1, 4 is still high. So the positive voltage is more, output will be again high. Gate circuit will be on. Clock pulse will reach the counter will again increment from 0 to 1, and the next counter state is 2, that is 0, 1, 0. Now this 0 output 0, 1, 0 will be converted by binary ladder into equivalent analog, and the output is 0, 1, 0 stands for 2 volt. So here now the output at the reference is 2 volt. Again 4 will be compared with 2. So 4 is still high, positive voltage at the non-inverting terminal is more, output will be still high, gate will circuit be on, clock will go to the counter will again increment, the next stage is 3. 3. So again it will come to level amplifier, the digital will be converted to analog, and the stage will be 3. So 4 will be compared with now 3. Oh, it's still high, 4 is still high. So output will be high, gate will be on, the clock pulse will go to the counter will increment to 4. So now the value will be 1, 0, 0, 0. So this will be amplified, the binary ladder will convert 1, 0, 0 into equivalent analog, which is nothing but 4. So this 4 volt will be compared with the 4 volt at the inverting terminal. So both are same. If both are same, the output will now be 0, that is low. If output is low, the gate circuit will be off, clock will not go to the counter, and whatever value is stored in the counter, that will be my equivalent digital state. That is, this is stored, so 100 is my output. That is, this is my equivalent digital state. So when is my output? And we know counter, it will not change the state unless and until it receives a clock pulse. So clock pulse, now since we have got low, gate circuit is closed, so we will not get any particular clock pulse here. So what will be stable is 100 state. So this is the digital equivalent of the analog input. So analog input, let's say, is 4. So we got the output of counter as the equivalent digital state. So this is why it is called as a counter type. It will start from 0, will go on incrementing the value unless and until this value becomes equivalent to the analog input. The clock pulse gate control circuit becomes off and the counter stops incrementing. Wherever it stops incrementing, that is the equivalent digital state. The problem is this, that suppose since I selected 4 volt as input, so I had to go with how many states? 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now let's say if this is 16 volt, so it will start from 0, will go up to 16 states, and then it will become equal. So higher the number of states, 24 volt, it will go to 24 states. So higher the input analog voltage, the time consuming will be more and the circuit will become slow. Otherwise, this is one of the most simplest circuit, counter type A to D converter. The problem in counter type A to D converter was that it consumed a time if your analog input voltage was more. That is, it will start from 0 and it will continue with the increase in the number of states. This problem we resolve by using successive approximation A to D converter. The principle is very simple, and what does it do is, it doesn't start from 0 and then count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it uses a very intelligent logic. What does it do is, the counter is first reset to all zeros. So let's say we have 4-bit counter, so all will be reset to 0. Okay. The second thing will be done is, then the MSB will be set. So which is my MSB? Here. So MSB is set. Now if you understand this, which is the principle, the concept is very easy. So if I say MSB is set 1, 0, 0, 0. So when the MSB will be set, what it will do is, now it will compare. Let's say, now there are 2 options. Now this is when I will be doing this scenario in the example, you will understand. So if suppose, now there are 2 ways. 1, when this is compared with the analog voltage, what will happen is, either this will be more or this will be less. So third case, what we will do is 2 options. Either the MSB is reset and the second MSB is set, or the MSB is kept as it is and the second MSB is set. So if we look, this is kept as it is and here it is reset. When the second MSB is set in both. In third scenario, what we will see is, or let me do one thing, let me go with an example which will help you to understand. So let me go with the circuit and then one by one you will understand this. So it again, it's same like a counter type A to D converter, a comparator, analog voltage, this is my input, which I need an equivalent digital of this. The output of the comparator, this is my reference voltage. The output of the comparator goes to a control and logic circuit. Now, this control and logic circuit will have my output going to either a ring counter. Now, ring counter is, simple principle is like if it is 1 0 0, the next step of ring counter will be 0 1 0 0, next step will be 0 0 1 0, 0 0 0 1. That is, the one will keep shifting by bit and again it will come back. So it is called as ring counter. Why we are using ring counter? Because as I said, the principle is you first set the MSB and you check. Then depending upon that, either it is reset or it is set, and the next MSB. So if you see, first was this one and now this one is being shifted to another one, so kind of ring. And another output directly goes to, so let's say it's n bit counter to a counter circuit. And then it's the same thing, the amplifier, n bit counter, and this is the output of the counter is actually my actual digital output, and this will pass to a digital to analog converter. So I'm using a binary ladder. So up till now this is a digital, and what we will be doing is we will be comparing with this analog. So to reach to, let's say in counter type A to D converter, to reach to 4 I had to pass through 4 stage. So if suppose I want to reach to stage, if my analog input voltage is 8, it means I have to pass through 8 time clock pulses. So that is going to take time. Let's see how it is done in this circuit. So let's say my analog input is 8 volt. Okay. If analog input is 8 volt, now first what I will do is I will try to explain the example, and with that example I will formulate the principle, and then this will become simple. So what the first thing we do is the counter is reset. So in our case it's 4-bit counter. All counter is reset. All counters are reset, and my analog is 8 volt. I want a digital equivalent, that is analog to digital conversion. Counter type, it will pass through 8 clock pulses. Second, MSB is set. So this is my MSB. So if we look at it, what is MSB? How much is this value? This value is 2 raised to 0, 2 raised to 1, 2 raised to 2, 2 raised to 3, 2 to the 4, to the 8. So this is 8 volt. So what I find is, the moment this was 0, it was compared with 8 volt, positive is more, output is high. Control and logic says, okay, the output is high, it means the ring counter set the MSB. So it sets the MSB, and the counter says, okay, that value is 100, which is 8. This 8 is converted to binary ladder 1000. Through binary ladder, the equivalent analog is 8. So the moment it gets 8, it compares with 8 volt. Oh, 8 and 8, it's 0. So output will be low. Control logic circuit will say that, okay, since the comparator is giving a low output, it means the reference voltage is same, the output of the counter is same as digital output, so it is 8 volt. Actually, so in counter type it needed 8 pulse. Here only in one in 2 pulses, my job is done. Let me take another example, which let's say instead of 8 volt, I have 15 volt. So MSB is set. This is 8 volt. When 8 volt will come here, and my analog is 15, 15 is more, output will be high. The control circuit will understand that the voltage which was generated, reference, is less. So it will say, okay, increase it. Increase the reference voltage because the output is still high. So how it will increase? It will keep 1 as it is. And it will set the second MSB. So see, the first MSB is left as it is. Now the second MSB is set. And how much is this? This is nothing but 10 volt. So again the counter 10 volt, that is, you will get 1100, 1100. The ring counter will send this one here, and this one will be set. Comes to binary ladder 110, it says okay, 110 is analog equivalent is 10. Now when 10 will be compared to 15, it is still less. Positive is still more, output will be high, positive. Control circuit will say, okay, reference voltage is still less. If reference voltage is still less, do one thing, further increase the reference voltage. So what it will do, it will even keep this second MSB as set. And now it will increase the third MSB. So how much is this? 8, 2 is 0, 1, 2, 2 is to 3, 2 is to 4. 8 plus 4 was 12. I'm sorry, 8 plus 4, this was 12 volt. Now 8 plus 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14. So this third MSB is set. Now again this is 14 volt. So this 14 volt, the control and logic circuit will make a combination of ring counter and will give me an output of 1110. Now when 1110 will come, the binary ladder, it will convert into an equivalent analog as 14. So it will say, okay, 14 will be compared with 15. 15 is still high. Output will be high. Control logic circuit will say, oh, since your reference voltage is still less, we need to again increase the reference voltage. So it will say, okay, keep the MSB as it is. Now set the next MSB, that is this. And now my output will be 15 volt. So with the combination of ring counter and counter, now output will be 1, 1, 1, 1. It will come to binary ladder will convert 1, 1, 1, 1 and say, okay, 1, 1, 1, 1 is 15 volt. This 15 volt will be compared with the analog input. 15 and 15, both positive and negative are equal. It's a differential amplifier. Input is same, output will be 0, that is low. Control and logic circuit, when it will receive a low signal, it will understand that the reference signal was equivalent to analog. It means whatever is the output in the counter, that is my actual output. So in the counter, the output was 1, 1, 1, 1. So it will say, okay, so this is my actual digital output. So what does it mean? It means when it will find that the reference voltage is less and it needs to be increased, the MSB will be remained as it is and the next MSB will be set. Now if we take another example, so we took an example of 8 volt, we took an example of 15 volt. Let's say now I take an example of which is lesser than 15, something like 3 volt. So again, so if 15 volt had to be compared, it needed 15 clock pulse. But see, within how many state we reached this? We reached within 4 clock pulses. So now my analog pulses, analog voltage is 3. So first stage, all counter to be reset. Second stage, the MSB to be set. So how much this becomes? This becomes 8 volt. Oh, now what will happen is, when this is 3 volt and the control and logic circuit will give me 1000, that is 8 volt by binary ladder, it will say, okay, this is 1 volt, this is 8 volt, the negative voltage is high. If the negative voltage is high, the output will be negative low. That is, it will not be 0, but it will be negative low. One is high and one is low. When they are equal, it will be exactly 0. So low, when it is negative low, the control logic circuit will understand that the output reference, the reference voltage is more. That is why the output is negative low. So it will say, okay, let's do one thing, let's reduce the reference voltage so that it matches with the analog input. So how to reduce it? So with the combination of ring counter and counter, it will say, okay, I need to reduce my reference. So up till now, when it was to be increased, we kept the MSB as it is. But here it will say, okay, we will reset this first MSB and we will shift this one, set the second MSB. So this is the main difference. When we want to increase the reference, either it keeps the MSB as it is, or it resets the MSB. When does it resets? When it wants to reduce the reference. When it keeps as it is, when it wants to increase. So it will set the next one. How much it is? It is 4 volt. So this 4 volt, ring counter and counter will generate it, will come here, will be compared with 3. Again, it negative voltage is more. So it will produce a negative low. It will understand that the reference voltage is still more. So what it will say is, okay, with a combination of ring counter and counter, further reduce the reference volt. So to further reduce, this MSB will be again, either there are two options, either I keep as it is, but we know when we will keep it as it is, when we want to increase, but we want to reduce our reference. So this MSB will be reset and the next MSB will be set. How much this is? 2 volt. So now when this is 2 volt, this 2 volt will be compared with 3 volt. Now 3 volt, the voltage at the positive terminal is more than the voltage at the negative terminal. So output will be high. When output is high, control and logic circuit understands that, okay, my reference is less and analog input is more. So if reference is less, I need to increase my reference. So the control and logic circuit, with the combination of counter and ring counter, now I need to increase the reference. So if I want to increase the reference, what will be happening is the MSB will be kept as it is and the next MSB will be incremented by 1 or will be set. So now we will see it is 3 volt. So this 3 volt will come, that is the output 0011, equivalent binary ladder will convert into 3. This 3 will be compared with this 3 and then we find positive and negative both are equal and the output will not be high, neither it will be low, it will be absolutely 0. The control and logic circuit will understand that the reference voltage is now equivalent to analog. So whatever is the output of the counter will be my equivalent digital output of the analog. So this circuit helps me to reduce my time to do the conversion. So 8 volt analog was reached within 2 states. 15 volt was reached within 4. 3 volt was reached within 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 clock pulses. So if I wanted to 15, I needed to go with 15 clock pulses. But here 1 clock pulse, 2 clock pulse, 3 clock pulse, 4 clock pulse, I reached to this stage. So if I now explain the principle, it will become simpler for you. And the principle is something like this. Of The principle says, number 1, all counters to be first reset. Number 2, the first MSB is set. This is then compared with the analog voltage. If this voltage, equivalent analog voltage, when compared with the analog, is found to be more, then the reference voltage has to be reduced. So for reducing, this first MSB is made 0 and the next MSB is set. Or we find this is still less than the analog. So we have to further increase the reference voltage. So this MSB is kept as it is and the second MSB is then set. This is further compared. And then when we further compare, what we do is either this needs to be increased or decreased. If it needs to be increased, this one is kept as it is and the next MSB is set. If it needs to be decreased, then this MSB is not left, but it is reset and the next MSB is set. So this is how it is done. So what I can do is I can reach to each stage. Let's see how, whether can I reach to all 15 stages in a 4-bit counter. 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay. I get to 1, 0, 0, 0. Two options. Either MSB can be left as it is, or it can be made 0. And the second MSB, now which is second MSB? This can be set. So this is how we'll bifurcate now. So this is my second MSB. Now there are two options. My second MSB can either be now left as it is, or it can be reset, and the subsequent MSB will now be set. Again, two options. This can be further, either this MSB can be left as it is, or it can be reset depending upon whether I need to increase my reference voltage or reduce it. And the next MSB to be set. Two options. Either this MSB can be kept as it is, or it can be reset. Similarly here, this MSB can be kept as it is, or it can be reset. This MSB can be kept as it is, or it can be reset and the next MSB to be set. So next MSB can be either kept as it is or can be reset. Here also, this MSB can be left as it is or it can be reset. Similarly here, second MSB can be kept as it is or it can be reset. The third MSB has to be set in both scenarios. Now, the third MSB can be kept as it is or it can be reset, and the fourth MSB to be set. So fourth MSB either can be kept as it is or it can be reset. Here also, the fourth MSB either it can be kept as it is or it can be kept reset. In this scenario, the third MSB can be kept left as it is and the next subsequent MSB to be set, or the third MSB to be reset if I need to reduce the reference voltage, and the subsequent MSB, last MSB to be set. Now this, the last MSB can be, will be evaluated if it is more, then it has to be reset, and if it is less, then it will be kept as it is. Here also either can be kept as it is or it can be reset. So if I see this is 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So I start from 0, my first clock pulse, second clock pulse, third clock pulse, fourth clock pulse, fifth clock pulse. So within fifth clock pulse, I can reach to any state. Therefore, this is called as successive, because successively either I am setting the MSB or I am keep resetting it and I am setting the next MSB bit. So this is called as successive approximate register. I hope you understood this. Any doubt, ask in the comment section. Thank you.